One of the most important elements about a brand identity is consistency, and that consistency has to be across every facet of your visuals, including parts that typical people don't think is important. For example, this logo and this typeface here, or this font or the words, whatever you want to call it, they don't match. And so in this video, I'm going to fix this and show you how much of a difference that it actually makes. So what's up? My name's Ty. I'm a graphic designer, and I've been creating brand visual identities for about 6 years, and we're recording this video live. There's no editing here, so hope you work with me as we go through the process. So I have two options here that I can show you. The first one to do is, if I really love this choice of a typeface or a font, you could say, then I can keep the typeface as it is, and I can modify the logo to match the typeface. So what does that actually mean? Well, let's type a very special word here, hand gloves, and you don't need to worry about why I type it, but we're going to look at the specific shapes that this font creates. So let's take a look and just notice something like this. Notice the pointed corner of the A and the rounded corner of the A there, and how this part of the H kind of comes up like that. So there's all of these shapes that the font creates that I can replicate. Like, look at this S, how it goes wide and then gets smaller like that. So those are the types of things that I would replicate in my logo, is pick some of these shapes and try to replicate it. So I think either the pointiness here as shown by the E or the width trailing off from the S is something that we can kind of copy. So to do that, what I'll do is, and since this is a mirrored design, by the way, Tiger Lily Clothing Co. is a fake identity that I created for the exact purpose of demonstrating topics like this. So this isn't, I'm not hurting an actual company by changing this, but I will actually break this apart and delete that, and I can work with just one. And if you want to watch how I made this logo, by the way, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check it out. But anyhow, enough of that. We're gonna customize this so that it works a little bit with the font that we have chosen. So what I should do is, I'm actually going to take my text tool and I'm going to draw an S, since that is the important part here. Let's ungroup this. And right now what I'll do is do my best to match this shape. So I actually don't need this middle guy here, but what I do need to do is straighten this out like that. And then this will kind of come up because it's going to be thin, and it's going to be a very delicate process to try and make this work. Because when you affect one thing, it affects everything across the logo, and in some cases it's better to just rebuild it, but we'll work with what we can here. Let's make that a little thinner so it gradually gets bigger, and there we go. We kind of have this working a little bit just like that. So we have matched the S here. Now the reality is I need to match it perfectly. So there's a couple of strategies or tactics that I can use to do that. Like, I can take this S and I want to copy the angle that it's set to. So I will literally draw over this. I'll draw over this like so. That way I can create, gotta get that there. That way I can get it as close as possible. So that's pretty good. I'll overlay this on top like so. And this angle here, I need to match. And one of the things that I like to do is draw the angle and then create a box like so. And then what I can do is take this and overshoot it by a lot. We'll place this on that corner. This has to come up to here. And I will select this and I'll chop it off. We gotta invert it like this. Make that black, select that, and then chop it off. So now this will match the angle of this part of the S, which means that it's matching, which is exactly what we want. So that's one way to customize that end of it. And then I also have little flares like this guy here. Hello? That's why. Anyways, like this there. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Or I can match the flare of the A. So I need to decide, do I want to go more along the lines of like this H, that blockiness, or the pointiness of the A. And with this, I'm gonna go with the pointiness. So I'm gonna pick an E, because that will give me the most accurate idea. And this is actually a flat end. It's not a curved end. So what that means is I'll take this and I'm gonna completely tweak this. I'm just gonna get rid of it and actually pull this down, create a point there, create another point here. These are gonna be flat and next to each other like that. And like I showed earlier, it's a matter of really working with it to make it work. Now, I'm doing a lot of manual work here at the individual node points. One thing I would probably do is break down these shapes, so convert this to a curve, and try to build off of these shapes in reality. So I can do something like this, and then I have this to work with. So I can flip it around like this, and maybe I need to, there we go. So I can literally pull straight from the letters to try and match the logo with it. So for this E, I will basically delete all of those. And now I have an idea of what this should look like. And I'll actually use it to just build with it. So what I mean by that is conform all of these. I can lock it onto the geometry of it. And then using something like a shape builder tool, I might cut this out, which there needs to be a little bit more of an overlap. I'm just doing this as an example, and then I'll work to refine it a little more. But now I can cut this out, and I can combine this like that. Hello, phone. And now look at that. We have the same ending of the E because I literally pulled it off of the E. And then I just have to kind of fix some of the inconsistencies here, which I'm going to do that real quick. Wow, it is a really nerve-wracking designing while recording. All right, so I've worked on it for a couple of minutes, and you saw the time lapse there. So this is where we started, and here is what I adjusted in order to make it fit the logo a little better. Like that. So it gives the logo a very different feel to it, and it does match the words a little bit better. So let me give you a sample of some of what I have done. So if we take a T and an S, you'll see that this hook right here is built from this T. So what I did is I created it there. It's the same angle, and it follows the curve, but then I moved it up. So that angle matches there. And then similarly with the S, we have this angle here, which matches that angle there of the S. And then same with the thinning. At this point, this comes down and it thins down here, but stays thicker in this point, and it thins here and it thickens out around this point. So I took cues from the design of the typeface, and I used it to guide the design of the logo. Now, I don't fully like how this ended up in the end. I only spent a couple of minutes on it, but normally what I would do is I would spend multiple hours on it, creating many variations of the logo, testing out different little serifs and tweaks to find what I really like. But in order to keep everything kind of short and simple here, this is what we'll end up with for today. Now, I actually really do like how this already looks. I don't want to change my logo, but maybe I can change my typeface. I can pick a typeface and match it better to my logo. And there's one I already picked out earlier that will kind of work. And it is this guy right here. So we're going to go from a serif font to a sans serif font. And the reason for that is because by the design of the logo, there aren't any serifs. The logo itself is very simple. So to match it, it makes more sense to go with a sans serif font like this one. Now, the thing about this font is that it doesn't have rounded corners. It has very sharp corners, unlike my logo, which has, well, rounded corners everywhere. And so that needs to be fixed. And honestly, ultimately, what that comes down to is converting this to curves and then coming through here. And I will select basically every single one of these corners here, and I will round them to about there, so that they all have rounded corners like that. And I do that with every single letter here. And I've actually already done that. And it's right here. It looks like this. So just making that change integrates it a little more with the logo. So now they both have these rounded corners, and they match a little bit better. And so ultimately what it is it's consistency. The designs are consistent with each other. And that's the important thing here. So now when I have my logo off and people see the name Tiger Lily Clothing Co., there's a certain amount of expectation that is set there, and there's a certain amount of feeling and voice that this logo gives to it. And I've delved a lot deeper into this in other videos, but to kind of refresh, in typography is voice, your brand voice given visual form. That's what typography is. And so the choice of your font is important because it is the way that you demonstrate the voice of your brand. So for Tiger Lily, the voice would be like quiet confidence, you could say, where it doesn't want to shout, it doesn't want to yell, but by its nature, it's simple, and that simplicity provides confidence. And this type of typeface allows it to do that, to say that. Now, by modifying the typeface with the rounded corners like this, what it does is it sets a certain amount of expectation. The rounding of the corners makes it a little bit more friendly, a little bit more approachable. So now when you see the logo and you see the same rounded edges as the word mark, it's consistent. So any emotion or feeling that was tied to the word mark here is now tied to the logo. And that works vice versa. If we take away the word mark and we see the logo here, it sets a certain expectation. So looking at this, you see they're kind of intertwined. It's pretty simple, and it looks pretty abstract, but also kind of interesting and elegant. So when you pair that with a word mark with the name of the company, the rounded corners, the curves, everything matches, everything fits, which means we're communicating the same message across everything, all of the elements of our brand identity. So that was a long-winded way of going about it, but this kind of shows why it's important. So which of these do you like more? Let me know in the comments. And if you really want to see me try and fix this design, also let me know. That way I can match it much better with the typeface down there. But anyways, if you want to see how I designed this logo, then go check out this video here. Thanks for watching. Peace out.